Derelicts, a single-player co-op survival game which is set years after an ancient, enigmatic mechanism has flooded the Earth with radiation. You and your team are tasked with investigating the source of the incident. We must build, craft, and explore, alone or with friends, in a hostile, mysterious wasteland. It looks absolutely awesome. Now, we've covered some bits on this before, which I'll link in the description down below if you do want to check it out and you're not actually up to scratch with Derelicts. But it is a single-man band. One man has made this game, and he's been doing it as a passion project for quite a while. But the purpose of today's video is he has done an exclusive interview with Game Rant. I will link the full interview in the description down below if you do want to check it out. There's some really awesome features in there about the developer himself, and there's a really nice amount of news about what he plans to do with Derelicts going forward into early access and then further on into the actual life cycle of the game. Now, this has all been made by one man, and it looks absolutely awesome. I'm very excited to try this game, as I know many people are. This guy posts regularly to the Twitter account with lots of really cool stuff. You'll see some of those clips in the background, and recently the game has been getting a nice amount of traction, which is good, and I think the developer, whose name is Romain, deserves it, because it looks like he has worked really hard, and he has put in some actual indie teams to shame, considering he's done this by himself. So let's have a little bit of a look at this interview that he did with Game Rant and see what new features and little things that he plans to bring to the game over its lifespan and as we enter early access. Now, when it comes to an actual release, unfortunately we don't have a set date yet, but Romain thinks early access will be early in 2024, but it will depend on the progress during this year, and of course a closed alpha, which is also aimed for this year. A closed beta may be the beginning of next year, and then if the state of the game is good enough, he will be releasing it onto early access after a closed beta. He won't give any specific dates because he doesn't know how long it's going to take to test features, but he is thinking about hiring an actual company of testers to come in to make sure everything works. His priority is to make sure it works. He doesn't want to release a game full of bugs and just say, yep, it's early access, we'll fix those later. He wants those bugs flushed out as soon as possible, and hopefully before he actually launches into early access. So storyline and things like that, there'll be little bits of that in the game when it launches into early access, but it won't be a full-on story what he actually has planned. It will just be snippets and potentially a mission or something here and there, but we'll have to see. Now, when it comes to co-op, now players... Now, when it comes to co-op, the question was the game is also including co-op. Can players form alliances or build relationships with other survivors in-game? And what else might you enable? Now, Derelicts does not have a PvP mode. There is no PvP aspects at all. The game is aimed to be played with friends, and you can also join strangers and play together, and a lot of people form some good friendships over games like this, which is brilliant. But there's not always an alliance. It's just your team, similar to the Forest or Green Hell. So it will just be you and your men out there going for it. At first, in early access, it's going to be up to 4 players, but he's planning on adding it all the way up to 8, if that is actually doable. But he wants to start off with 4 and then increase it in steps, as adding multiplayer into games is a very difficult process. Next up is crafting. And I'm actually quite interested. As you've seen in the background, you can build some really cool things. And Romain said that he wanted to have a crafting system that would be involved in the game very organically and not something that is just a lot of cluttered UIs. So he wants to implement things as realistic elements. So being able to actually put things together, similar to like the forest and stuff like that. Being able to put things together, he says here, like 2 sticks and a rock will make you an axe. And he says that has been done a lot of times in games already, so he wants to innovate a little bit, which I actually like. It's very good. There's also benches like the forge where you can craft directly on them, and the aim is to involve people in crafting. So you won't just be selecting 2 items and crafting something. You'll actually have to hit items with hammers and use bellows on the fire, and he wanted to have the player really involved in that crafting aspect, which is definitely different. And I actually quite like that. As you've seen in the background, there's a little bits where you actually have to pump the bellows to get the forge hot enough, where you're actually hitting some iron plates to make some saw blades, and that just looks awesome. So the next question is, what kind of balance have you created between the building and combat aspects? And so far, it looks really good. There's a lot of finicky stuff with the crafting, which I like, and combat does look very broad and open-ended, so you'll be able to craft whatever you want. You can go into a situation with firearms, you can go into it with a bow and arrow, and you can go into it with a sword and shield. So pretty cool. I like that difference, whether that's just going to be a sort of level thing where you're using those primitive things early on because that's all you've got, or whether some enemies actually take better damage with melee weapons. We'll have to wait and see. But he says he's trying to find an organic way to force people to progress. Although I don't like the word force, it's essentially what I'm trying to do, to make players explore mechanics of the base building, sort of like in an RPG, we have to upgrade your gear to move further in the game. There's also some innovative mechanics, such as the log flumes. This is something new that I wanted to add to the crafting and building mechanics, and at first you will be chopping logs in a sawmill, and then transporting them via log flumes as you provide the log flumes with water, which will sort of automate the building process. But when it comes to combat, you'll start the first few days being quiet and not being attacked by enemies or animals, but as you progress further, you'll have more and more enemies, which will require you to build traps. Ballistas, that's cool. Ballistae, yeah, either or. I know what a ballista is, yeah, and so on to defend your base. His vision was to sort of force equipment via the base, so your player will need to build that better base to get better weapons and tools in order to explore the world. And there are certain points where players will be encountering more aggressive enemies, and with just a bow and arrow, you're probably not going to be able to defeat them. That remain, my friend. Challenge accepted. I'm going to give it a go. And you got to wait a year, but I'm excited. Something that we haven't seen any footage of yet, but what are some harder challenges that players will expect when playing Derelicts? And he says that the first one is weather events. There's going to be blizzards and tornadoes that can destroy parts of your base, which I think is fucking cool. I don't think I've seen a tornado in a game other than Battlefield, and especially a survival game. Having a tornado just roll in and rip shit apart is going to be insane. He says that he really likes the aspect of natural disasters and that anyone can really threaten your base and safety, because if a player gets too strong, your game can get boring, so he wants to add random events that will keep players on their toes. So the weather effects are that thing to keep the player on their toes, which I like that. I think that's really, really cool. So when your player builds a water wheel and water freezes, the water wheel will stop working, which I love that. There's no wind, your windmill will not turn, so when there's no sun, your solar panels will not work. So you're going to have to diversify energy and go through everything. He's also planning on adding debris rain, but he doesn't want to spoil too much yet. But there will be a reason for spaceship debris raining from the sky. Also, another thing is bosses. So for the next one, it is a talk about bosses, and they want to know what kind of approach that he's taken to the bosses. And he said that you're going to need to get keys, which will get you to a sort of end game. So it's like certain games you'd need 4 keys to enter a temple. His goal is to have dungeons, and at the end of the dungeons there's going to be a boss that would drop a key. It's a simple way of world building, and he likes it because it's about all exploration. So your goal is about having a map that is completely interconnected. And one of his inspirations for the map is actually Dark Souls. So pretty cool, but he likes the level design in Dark Souls, and it has inspired him quite a lot, especially the multi-layered levels where you can go deeper and deeper, and he loves the aspect and he wants to implement it in Derelicts 2. The surface is a sandbox with a large forest and shoreline, while the dungeons are underground and everything is interconnected. You can go from one dungeon to another one once you unlock a particular boss, and bosses are required to advance in-game, and the player will need different and better equipment to take on each boss. So I like that idea. I think that's really cool, and it's definitely going to be a brutal fight. With a lot of these bosses, we've seen 1 or 2 of them so far, and they look pretty damn cool. Especially the big scorpion thing. So next is a little bit about the plot line. So as you may have guessed already, we're on a spaceship and we crash land. But the reason we are actually on that spaceship is because the Earth was flooded with radiation for several decades. And he says that humans have tried to search for a way to fix it and the origin, but at the same time, they plan to leave Earth just in case they couldn't solve the problem. They left Earth and went to live on a space station, and at the beginning of the game, players are returning to Earth as the shuttle crashes, and this is why there is debris falling in certain areas. Now, his inspiration for this is somewhat along the lines of Subnautica. He wants to build a giant wreck from that main spaceship that you see in some of the clips, where it drops down, and you want to be able to actually search that eventually. That is something that he wants to bring in, which I actually like that idea. And the goal for yourself is to actually find the origin of the radiation, and you're a team of scientists that have found the vicinity of the source, but you couldn't pinpoint exactly where it is. So it's your job to find the exact location, which I love this storyline. The spaceship whole thing, it reminds me of the series The 100, which I big fan of. Absolutely love that series. And it's just going to be a cool experience. Some of the crash looks awesome, and I did say as soon as I saw that I wanted to go in that ship. I want to search that ship because it just looks phenomenal. But finally, I should have started with this because it's one of the best things about the game. There is a canine companion. Oh yeah. Awesome, right? There is a doggo in Derelicts, which is always good. And the reason he's had this is because people play solo. And he wants people that do play solo to have that little something there with them, which I love. It's like Myst. You know, you've got a little doggo companion, which is so damn cool. Absolutely love that idea, and I can't wait to check the game out. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. A massive shout out to Romain for everything that he's done so far on the game. I can't wait to be able to see it in action and be able to get my hands on it. And once again, this interview is from Game Rant. There's a few more things on there about Romain, and I've rounded off quite a few of the points. So if you do want to check the article out yourself, it is in the description down below. Definitely go check that out. For now, though, ladies and gentlemen, subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the video, and stick around for much more derelicts and survival news. If you do want to support us a little bit further, consider checking out the members. I'd greatly appreciate it. For now, though, I've been Wired. You guys have been awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.